JUMPSCARE. Whenever I have like a full face on and I haven't done my concealer, I'm like, Anyway, hi. So today I'm going to be going over all of my best tips for flawless under eyes. This is not only going to focus on things like preventing creasing under your eyes, also concealing dark circles, but also like a couple little extra tips on top of it for those of us who have extremely dark circles and like just need like a little bit of extra, like a little, like just like a little cherry on top, you know what I mean? So the first thing, obviously, like, and I'm sure that so many people are sick of hearing about it, but like it really begins with your skincare, okay? And in a lot of different ways. And when I say that, I don't mean using dark circle creams. There are some eye creams out there that can help, you know, like caffeine. They say that like caffeine can help, peptides and stuff. I don't know, retinol eye creams. I'm not a dermatologist. Everyone is very individual. That kind of thing is something that you're gonna have to like figure out at a later date. However, your typical, like the way that you prep your skin for makeup is extremely important, and I want to talk about that. So the very basic of it, in my humble opinion, is in the morning when you are prepping your skin for makeup, you want to make sure that you are at least rinsing your face. Again, this is going to depend on your skin type. Going in with some kind of like a light mist, some kind of toner, depending on your skin type. And then like a moisturizing milk or a moisturizer, depending on your skin type. This might change depending on your environment as well. So I'm gonna show you the products that I used today to prep my skin. And then I'll talk about like how I had to adjust it a little bit recently. So for instance, today, one of my favorite hydrating mists is the Bioma Balancing Face Mist with triceramide complex probiotics and allantoin. Allantoin. It could be toin. I think it's allantoin, but I kind of like allantoin. Anyway, it just like helps to boost your skin barrier. I tend to be a little bit more dry, especially because I'm upping my tretinoin a little bit percentage. So that's something you want to keep in mind. So I just do a little bit of this, some mists on my face, kind of pat it in. And then today I went in with the Anua 70 Plus Rice Ceramide Moisture Milk, or whatever this is called. Yeah, moisturizing milk. So it contains 70 plus rice. I don't know. It's rice bran water. So it's ceramides, it's hydrating, it brightens, but it also, like, I believe rice is also like great for oil control, which sometimes I can tend to get a little bit oily. Is that happening at all yet? I can see a little bit. Anyway, so, you know, I live in Los Angeles. It can tend to be, hello? It can tend to be a little bit more dry. The balance that you create with like how you are prepping your skin is really important. So one of the reasons that I suggest a mist is because I've always found that like going in with something like that, like it doesn't necessarily have to be a mist, but like something really lightweight and watery helps all of the other products absorb. Because if you have product just sitting on the top of your skin, stuff's gonna slide around. It's gonna cause more creasing, it's gonna cause breakage. It's just like you're gonna have a bad time. Okay, things aren't gonna mix, it's gonna be a bad time. So I like to start off with this, and then like my second step kind of just depends on my skin. Today, I'm like relatively hydrated. I have a couple little dry areas like at my temple here, again, tretinoin. This was hydrating enough, but it's not too heavy. I was recently in New York, and I was slathering my face, once again, Anua. This is the Ceramide 3 with panthenol. So this is a nice calming and very, very moisturizing cream. I love it because it's not so oily, because like if you're congestion prone, you don't want something that's gonna be like way, way, way too heavy. But oh my God, I needed this in that it was like 30 degrees and it was so dry. So I was just like, this is what I need. It was like, these thin milks were not enough. Also, sometimes I used my CeraVe PM moisturizer. It's funny because it's PM, but I like to use it in the daytime as a daytime moisturizer. But this after a mist is also really good. So obviously you don't have to have a ton of different products, but I like to use different things for different situations, okay? So that's the very basic. I would say that if you are going to use a sunscreen, then only use like your mist, your moisturizer. Depending on how moisturizing your sunscreen is, you might even be able to just go in with a mist, then your sunscreen. But the more that you're piling products on top of each other, you're gonna get pilling, and you're gonna get like things breaking up and it's just not going to sit nicely on the face, okay? Especially pilling, that's a big one. So I wanna get into my technique, which is going to involve color correcting and also applying concealer, setting so that you're not getting any creasing, and how to do all of those things. But really quick, I just want to thank Sleep and Go for Sleep and Go? Sleep and Glow for sponsoring this portion of the video. You know them, you love them, you've heard me talk about them a million times. I know you love them because I get the comments from you guys. Super exciting. Sleep and Glow is having their December sale and they gave me a coupon code. It's Alexandra 15. You can get 15% off. So the pillow is the Omnia pillow, which you've obviously heard me talk about like a million times on this channel. I've been using it for years since they first sent me one. If you're not familiar, it's fabulous. Let me grab it real quick. Oh my God, I almost knocked my tea over. So this is mine. I bought this champagne silk pillowcase so that it matched my bedding. So if you are not familiar, the Omnia pillow was specifically designed to prevent sleep wrinkles. It was designed by orthopedists to make sure that you have proper posture while you're sleeping. And what's really nice is it has these tiny little grooves in here, so your face just sort of like nestles in here while you're sleeping, and it just protects the delicate like center of your face, so especially those under eyes. Whereas a typical pillow doesn't have those grooves, so you're just like mushed against it, you know, which just causes all of this like creased skin. And let's face it, you're sleeping for 8 hours, like you want to avoid that. So let's try to do as much as we can while we're sleeping. Like I said, this was designed by orthopedists and it was specifically designed to create proper spine alignment, which is really important when you're sleeping. They also conducted a study in Barcelona, which found that 87% of patients saw their wrinkles reduced, which is fabulous. So if you don't have one already, and I feel like a lot of you already do, but I have a coupon code for you, Alexandra 15, check it out. They also have a weighted blanket, which is really exciting, which is amazing for, you know, sleep disorders like insomnia, anxiety, and it just helps to promote like a deeper sleep. This is so cool. I had to Google this, but like it's filled with, the weight is created by these tiny little like glass beads, which helps to keep you like your temperature regulated throughout the night, which is very important for me because I hate being hot when I sleep. But I just thought that was so cool. I had to Google like, what do they fill it with? And it was so interesting. I have spoken on my channel like here and there that I had chronic insomnia for like 8 years. I would have loved to have something like this when I was going through that. So it just envelops you and it makes you feel like a nice hug without making you feel like hot and overwhelmed. So obviously I will link everything in the description down below for you to check out. You can use my code Alexandra15 to get 15% off if you are interested. Highly recommend. And it will be active through December, to the end of December. So you might want to act fast. Christmas present or late Christmas present to yourself. I have, you know, a bit of a hollow. I have obviously darkness. I have quite a bit of darkness and it has gotten darker recently, which I'm going to talk about in a separate video. So if you want to know more about that, check that out. Coming soon. But I do have darkness. You can see that like this area of my under eye, like my nose, where my nose is, it's kind of deep in there. So it's like a little bit tricky to get to. And it's pushed back ever so slightly, like underneath my brow and like at this point of my nose. So it just like kind of exacerbates the darkness a little bit. Obviously having like slight hollows. And then I do have, I'm looking very well. I'm happy with how well hydrated my under eyes are right now. But if I smile, you can see this line that is created here. And then I have lines over here. So those are like prime areas for concealer to pool up, okay? So let's figure this out, all right? We're gonna do it. So I am going to begin by color correcting, okay? Now, my favorite product to color correct with is the NARS concealer in, I just hit my face, in Nougatine. So this is technically not like a color corrector, but the shade is really beautiful for my skin tone. So if you are a like warm neutral or pale warm olive, you know, if you're in this vicinity of skin tone, this is such a beautiful concealer and works really nicely as a color corrector. So I like to just take a teeny bit out and put it on the back of my hand. Honestly, usually I put way too much out. I don't know why I'm putting more. Like I'm not gonna use that, that's too much. I'm just gonna put a little bit out. And I love using a tiny little brush. Now, sometimes I use synthetic hair brushes. Sometimes I use natural hair brushes. For creams, I feel like synthetic is usually the way to go. But like, do what your heart desires. If you have a natural hair brush that you love for this technique, use it. You know what I mean? I have been loving recently Nikki LaRose, her collab with BK Beauty, the number 16 brush. Let me tell you why. So she has this beautiful, oh, this is actually something that's very similar to my face brush that I did with Refer. So she has this really beautiful bristle variation all up here, which just really helps with that blending. So you have like much more density in the center of the brush. And then as you get out to the outer edges, you have this nice bristle variation. What I also like about it is that it's a little bit wider. It's wider going this way. And then when you turn it, it gets a little bit thinner, which is amazing for people like me who need to have a little bit more precision in these tiny areas. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick up the teeniest amount just with like the top bristles. See that? I don't even know if you can see that against my skin. So such a small amount. And I'm going to do what Katie Jane Hughes refers to as priming the brush. I'm going to buff this shit into my hand. Okay? So I am really like, I'm taking the tiniest amount, I'm buffing it into the brush. Then I'm gonna pick up just a teeny bit more, buff it into the brush. So what you want is when you're buffing it into the brush, when you look at your hand, you don't want to see streaks, okay? You don't want to see big streaks. If you see any streaks in your buffing, then you've probably put a little bit too much, okay? So now that I've worked this into the brush, I'm going to start off in the darkest area of my under eye, which is like right in here, and turning it to make sure that I can like really fit in there. And I'm going to purposely avoid these folds up here, okay? This area tends to crease a lot because I just have folds, natural folds there. It's gonna gather, like it's gonna gather, okay? So see when I do that, how much gathering we have in this area. So I'm going to avoid that. I'm talking really fast, I need to take a break. Okay, and then I'm going to just pat into that hollow. So in that darkest area. So I spoke to Nikki about this when I saw her a while back, and she said the key with this brush is not to swipe, but to pat. So that's why I'm really patting this into the skin. Now you can see, focused it in that area, the darkest area, and then as I get to the outer part, I'm just gonna kind of like turn my brush so that it's a little more flat, and then just pat whatever's left, which is like literally like I hardly used any product, and look at that difference already. Amazing, right? Fabulous. Look at that difference. Beautiful, already, just like so fantastic. Now, if you're confused about why I'm using this like orangey color underneath my eyes, we're canceling out the darkness, okay? Because I'm gonna go in with a slightly lighter concealer. If I just go in with that slightly lighter concealer, we're gonna get that grayness coming through. You don't want that, okay? That's a very common question that I get from a lot of people. When I put concealer on, I get this gray color coming through. You don't want it to look ashy, okay? It's gonna make especially around your eyes, it's gonna make you look so dead. If you are trying to actually conceal your dark circles, this is the way you wanna do it. That might seem kind of odd because you might look at the color of my dark circles and think like, oh, well, if I want color correct, then I should use, you know, I don't know, like a greenish color, like a kind of reddish brown, then a green color. You could do that. I'm gonna link a video up here for you where I talk about the differences and in what circumstances you would do those kinds of things. For this specifically, I'm layering concealer over color corrector. So I wanna make sure that I'm using something warm so that that gray cast doesn't come through, okay? So I've applied my color corrector with the tiny, this was such a waste of product. Like I put so much product out, and I hardly used it because like the brush is basically clean now, you know? Like whatever I put on there, I applied underneath my eyes and it was the smallest amount. So that is going to be key when it comes to preventing creasing. You really need so much less than you think you do. Now, if at this point, if you feel like you've applied that product and things are starting to look a little bit dry, one of my favorite tricks is to rehydrate with a little bit of a mist, okay? I really like this one from Milani. It's the Make It Last Natural Finish Setting Spray. It's just like nice and hydrating. It's kind of like one of those, it has glycerin and niacinamide, which is nice. And you can use it to prime, hydrate, set, whatever. So that's one of the things that I like about it, is just kind of like rehydrate things. Now, I don't really feel like I need it, but I just kind of want to show you. So what I would do is mist the brush and then just kind of like buff it into the back of my hand so that we're evenly coating. And then just press, like actually, for instance, I have a little bit of dryness on my upper lid right in here. Just press into that product. Now, because this is also a setting spray, this really helps to melt everything into the skin. So you can do this at any stage, like whenever you feel, I'm just gonna do a little bit more on that little dry patch up there. Whenever you feel like you need it. It's a really great way to bring a little bit of hydration back between layers, okay? So now for my under eyes, I'm going to use, what concealer do I want to use? I have so many that I like. Let's use CoverGirl. This is the CoverGirl True Blend Undercover Concealer in the shade Porcelain, Fair Porcelain. Okay, so it's a little bit lighter, right? This is what? This is a beautiful dark circle concealer, like very full coverage. So again, I don't need a lot. So I'm just gonna put a little bit out on the back of my hand. Too much, all right? Because we're gonna be using so little. You're gonna be amazed at how much product you like save. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna take the brush, dip the little bristles in, okay? And then in a different little area, I'm gonna work it into the brush. Now I usually do like 2 little passes because I kind of feel like the first pass buries it a little bit deeper into the bristles. And so then I'll pick up just a little bit more and then I'll do a second one. And I usually do just kind of like little circular motions and then patting motions. Okay, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing. So I'm just gonna turn my brush and I'm gonna pat over top, focusing in the inner, very inner part. And just layering on top of that color corrector. Do you see how little product that is? And now what we've done is we've brightened up a little bit in that area. I'm just going in with like the teeniest amount and patting over that color corrector. You can see that like that like orangey color that may have been obvious before. We're just layering. We're just layering on top. So it's blending into the rest of the skin, giving a little bit of that highlight. The reason that I like using a slightly lighter concealer over a color corrector when I have like a little bit more of a hollow and just focusing it like right in that hollow is that it helps to create the illusion that this is all one plane, right? Because like when we're over here, this darkness, it really like just pushes it back. And it really pushes like this being light pushes that forward and pushes this back. So it just makes the eyes look like, oh, you know, like heavy and sunken. And if that's what you're going for, then like more power to you. But I like to look a little bit more like awake and bright. Isn't that beautiful? Fabulous? Crazy? Now, you can also, at this point, if you're feeling like, okay, I did my color corrector, then I went in with my concealer, and now I'm feeling like maybe a little bit dry, you can do the little misting trick. The reason I don't want to go straight in is because I just want to make sure that I'm not accidentally breaking up the product. So that's why I'm working it into the back of my hand first, and then patting gently over top, which will just rehydrate. Like if you're going to set with powder, and you feel like, oh, if I just apply a powder right now on top of this, it's just gonna be like a little too dry, you know? All right, now I just want to address a couple little things. Sometimes, maybe you applied like a little bit too much of the product. I have mentioned the Vincent Ford trick where you take a little Q-tip and squinch up your face, squinch up your face, and then you can kind of see where the product gathers. Pull it out with the Q-tip, pat, and then set with your powder. That's a really good option for people if you feel like there's an area where like the product tends to gather. I personally think that like doing this, like these very, very, very tiny, like priming the brush, very, very tiny amounts, like, you don't need to worry about that. Like it so does not create that effect. But if you do tend like to see that sort of ends up happening, that's a really great trick. I keep wanting to say trip and tricked. I don't know. So shout out to Vincent Ford for that. Next, let's set. So my favorite setting powder has been the Huda Beauty powder. I've been using Pound Cake for I don't even know how long. It is really nice. It's very finely milled. It's bright. Like it has a nice bright color, but it's a soft matte. I have in the past really loved the e.l.f. Halo Glow powder. Sometimes I don't know, sometimes I still use it, and then sometimes it just like, I don't like it as much. So like I kind of go back and forth. It depends on my mood. So that's a really good drugstore option. And it does have like very light, tiny light reflecting like pearl. It's so soft. Like it's so soft, it's so subtle. And I've heard from a lot of people who have more mature skin that they love this as an under eye setting powder. So just keep that in mind as an option. I'm going to use, once again, Nikki. I'm going to use Nikki's N14 brush, and I'm actually going to be using her technique. So shout out to Nick. Nick, like we know each other like that. Love her. Shout out Nick. So this is another trick that I learned from her that I'm obsessed with. So what I'm going to do is take my Huda powder. I'm going to put a little bit in the palm of my hand. And then I'm just going to buff the brush into the palm of my hand. You don't have to. So most of the time I put it in the cap. I don't know why I did that. Yeah, just tap it into the into the cap, pick it up, and then buff it into your hand. And that really just like evenly distributes it throughout the brush, similar to like the way we're priming the brush with concealer. Make sure we're all like blended. I'm talking a lot. Hopefully you're not, you know, emoting a lot while you're doing this. And I'm just gonna pat and set. So it really just makes everything like nice and smooth. And again, similar to like buffing the brush into your concealer, priming the brush, it just allows you to apply powder into the skin without applying way too much. Okay. And it applies it, there's just like a tiny little hair tickling me right here, and it makes me want to die. And it just creates this really beautiful, like smooth set finish. Okay. You can also use products like puffs. Okay. I stopped using these just because it's a little bit harder to buff it into the puff. So what I would do in the past is just kind of like pick up the powder on the puff like this, tap it into, oh, I don't have like a free place anymore, tap it into the puff and then set. Sometimes it can look a little heavy, sometimes it can look really smooth. So it's just sort of like your preference. I also want to mention that like if you don't want to use a brush for your under eyes, you can use a sponge. Like sometimes I use a sponge, sometimes I use a brush, sometimes I use a little bit of both. So it's really just like up to your preference. You have to like kind of try different things and see what works for you best. Another thing that I thought was really interesting that I learned from Vincent Ford, he uses a puff to set the under eyes, and he will, you know, apply the powder to the puff or whatever. And then what he does is just mist the puff so that the first thing that you're going down with is a little bit of setting spray. And then on top of that, you have, I just breathed some of the setting spray in. You have powder, which just sort of like acts as this double layer of locking in. It's pretty genius. And I really do like that. And sometimes I do it with the brush. Like I'll load up powder and then mist the brush with the mist and then set. And it really just like helps to kind of like melt everything into the skin and set everything without making it look like, you know, heavy. That being said, you do want to make sure that you're not using like way too much powder, because if you're using way too much powder and then way too much mist, you're just going to create a paste on your face, which we're not going for. Okay. Okay. Now my final tip for flawless under eyes. And again, this is just like the little cherry on top. Like you don't necessarily need it. I'm very happy with this side by side. Like we're not looking nice, concealed, smooth, not heavy. Okay, set, beautiful. I know this is going to wear well because I'm not wearing a ton of product, but this is just like that little like extra that's just going to make you look like super bright and awake and fabulous. Yes, it's an inner corner highlight, but we're gonna talk about it, okay? It's a little bit more than that. So, depending on your preference, you can use something super shimmery. you can use something extremely soft. If you're looking for that glow from within, you're trying to just sort of like, just like emphasize and open and brighten, and you don't want it to be obvious, then you want to grab something that's like a little bit more of a satin shimmer. Okay, so it's gonna have very, very, very fine pearl in it. So this means that maybe not your highlighter, okay? Unless you have like the perfectly soft satin, like think Hourglass finishing powders, that kind of glow, okay? I gotta pick one. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna use this shade number 8 from Hung Van Gogh's Wonderful Warm palette. So it's this like shimmery, soft, sort of like vanilla color, which has like a little bit of gold in it, which just is going to, I mean, it's gonna look nice on my skin. So like if you don't have any gold in your skin, maybe you don't wanna use gold, but I think it'll be nice. So I'm gonna grab a tiny little blending brush. I'm gonna use my Rephr 13 brush. This is one of my favorite little detail blending brushes. I'm just gonna pick up that shadow. You don't need a ton of it. Kind of doing the same thing that I did with everything else, where I'm like working it into the brush and then on the back of my hand so that it's evenly distributed. It also kind of gives you the option or the opportunity to see like how the color is going to look on your skin, you know? Like this actually has some gold, but it also has like a little bit of peach, which I think is going to really help brighten, which is nice. And it does have like a soft shimmer. I'm going to use this to brighten my inner corner, but what I'm going to do is drag it down slightly into this area, which for me gets so dark. It gets so dark. So I'm really just buffing this like almost into my under eye, okay? Which for the first time you do it, you might think like, oh, that's like way too much. But look at how this opens this area. Now I'm just gonna buff my brush off a little bit and then go in and soften the blend between like my setting powder and the shadow. If you're someone who has deeper set inner corners, you know, like if you have a lot of darkness, which like when you look at this eye, you can see like so much darkness like here and in here. That is why I like to do that. Like it looks so open and bright. And it's just like, to be honest, this shadow is probably like a little bit more than what I wanted. Like I would like maybe like a softer shimmer, because it is pretty obvious that it's an inner corner highlight. But if you go for something that's like very, very soft, then it just like helps to kind of like intensify the like a little bit of reflect in that area, so that when you're turning your face, it just looks open, you know? It just looks open and bright. And I really like taking it down into kind of like into this area, because it just like, it makes it a little bit more fun, you know? Like even if I'm wearing just like a normal, like, I don't know, some basic eyeshadow and then like mascara and that's it, taking it down into your under eye just makes it like a little fun. Just like a little bit fun, you know? You can, depending on the products that you're using, you can use an illuminator, like something that is a little bit more of like a liquid or a balm. But I would suggest being very, very careful with those products, because once you go in and you've set with that powder, you just run the risk, if you apply too much, of it creating a paste, and that's going to make everything look horrible. Okay, so like all the work you've done, you're going to undo by mixing that like liquid on top of powder. So again, make sure that you are using those tiny amounts of product, because you just don't need that much. Like this was probably like too much glow, but I love it, and I'm going out to dinner a little bit, so I want to look cute. Look at that side by side. It's a lot. Like it's so much. So these are all of my tricks for flawless under eyes, preventing creasing, brightening the darkness, and making sure that it's going to last deep into the night, okay? Like these are all of the tricks that I use when I'm like attending, well, it's pretty much what I do every single time I do my makeup, but especially when I'm attending a wedding, or like I know that I'm gonna be out for like a long night or something and I want everything to stay in place. Some kind of a setting mist. You don't have to use this one. You can use other ones that maybe are a little bit more like setting, or matte if you're someone who's like really, really oily. All of those tricks are just like, they all kind of come together to create like the perfect finish. So utilize the ones that work for you. You might have to like, you know, experiment a little bit. But as always, don't neglect your skincare. It means so much. It means so much when it comes to your makeup. Thank you again to Sleep and Glow for sponsoring a portion of this video. And if you are interested, obviously all of that stuff will be linked down below in the description box. Like and subscribe and blah, 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 blah. And if you have any specific techniques or products that like, maybe you do some of these techniques, but you have a product that works for you and you've never seen me use it and you think I should give it a shot, let me know in the comments. Cause I've been kind of just like using the same stuff for a really long time, which is totally fine. But like, I'm down to try some things. You know what I mean? All right, guys, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. All right, I gotta go, bye.